Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Hi, this is Melanie, and you're listening to Tailspin. On the second Friday of each month in downtown Long Beach, at Made by Millworks, there's kind of a show and tell event called How I Made It. This episode of Tailspin are the highlights of that December event at Made. It includes works by Jumakae, Sander Wolff, Dave Williams, and Erin Foley.
I'm very excited to be hosting the second How I Made It here at Made. This is an event that was conceived and implemented by Michelle Molina, Heather Kern, and Sarah Tatro. And Sarah was the one who was supposed to be running the shoe, but she was otherwise occupied this evening, so I am standing in her stead. So there's a few things that you should know. This is talking about process, but we're also going to be sharing some work. So it's going to be a little bit of both. I'm leaving a lot of leeway to the presenters to navigate their 20-minute segment. But the first one up, where did she go? Is June. There she is, June.
How many of you are familiar with the name Sambo? And is it like, it's derogatory? How many of you know someone named Sambo? Because he's our homie. So this is a poem I wrote about my dear friend Sambo, who actually lives down the street in Cambodia town. Sambo remembers the smell of lab, or larb, as Americans like to call it, minced chicken stir-fried in mother's kitchen with a fresh squeeze of lime, mint leaves, and bird's eye chili plucked straight from the garden grown from his father's green thumb in front of their one-bedroom home. The complex is shared with at least 10 units, most full of other Cambodian families, with herbs aligned down the narrow plot of soil to remind them of the roots they were displaced from. The pearl of Southeast Asia, Angkor Wat temples and rice paddy fields where the poor always had enough to eat, where fruit trees and vegetables did not hide behind white picket fences and manicured lawns, but bloomed freely across territories without 40-foot wired fences or landmines as borders. Sambo never knew the details, never was taught his own culture, but could sing, "God bless America," and recite the Pledge of Allegiance, hand over heart, bearing the same stars and stripes that dropped bombs over his mother's land 40 years ago. But teachers called him Uncle Sam for short, afraid to speak the name Sambo for the chains it carried in their colonized diction of black slaves mixed with indigenous blood, lynchings and mobs and white hoodies, a history brutal enough to be left out of his American textbooks. But it was in the garden, Father reaching for the branch of his banana tree where he spoke in his first tongue, like a secret being passed down on the verge of extinction, and learned the ancestral truth behind his Sanskrit name. Sambo, one of great riches, abundance, like the persimmons and guavas thriving in the front yard, enough to feed their small village. And so it was, until the neighbors turned to hipsters, until the taco stands turned to coffee shops, until the landlord came and covered the soil with cement, raising the rent by 10% and forbidding any sun to break through. Gardening was more than just organic, more than just a trend reserved for those with access to stolen land and wages. To plant seeds was to resist the temptation of the dollar menu from the golden arches beaming at every other corner, or the liquor store that numbed the pain and drowned the voices in his mind. Sambo wants to break through the concrete, to reach for the stars and nourish the soil he was planted from, to return the smell of his mother's cooking and the smile on his father's face, to take away the diabetes, respiratory, and cardiovascular disease rooted in trauma, stress, depression, poverty, and racism buried deep underneath the pile of medical bills where only the symptoms can be seen. To garden is to heal without prescription. To plant is to take back what once was ours before it was placed into pretty plastic packages and sold back to us for a profit. This country wants us to forget, but he will grow to bear fruit that will produce the seeds of resistance needed to keep his culture alive. We are all seeds trapped in a shell, eagerly waiting to sprout. And soon our mother will quake to shake us into existence. The clouds will rumble with our anger upon truth, and rain will drop tears to cleanse our pain, to remind us this was always ours, and now is the time to reclaim. I think I will leave it at that. Thank you so much for having me.
I have to say that I'm really glad I'm not following June, but the person who is, Dave Williams. Dave Williams, he's here to talk about some work he's been undertaking for, when did you start? Middle of March. So he's going to talk about monumental work that he's started, and I'll let him tell you about it. Dave Williams, everybody.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dave Williams. I'm a local musician. From 2008 on, I just watched everything just go into this downward spiral with myself, with friends, with America in general. People that had nice, cushy little safe jobs, and they could go out to eat and go to concerts and this and that and the other and live, that life that everybody wants to live all the time. Past 2008, I saw it all slide down the hill to the point where, some of those people were, in homeless shelters, or they're doing the couch tour, or they're sleeping on my floor or something like that. But just being poor generally, not that much changed. The only thing that changed was, a lot of other people could kind of see my plight. There was also a dark cloud over our social climate. It just got easier and easier to generalize people and to say half-truths and untruths, and people living their lives based on urban legends and all kinds of nonsense. And I get to the point where I have to make this new expression, not just because I felt like I needed to go up a level, but this was something that was really, really bugging me. And I come from a background of reading sci-fi books and stuff, so I think in some of those terms that Frank Herbert or Isaac Asimov might have come up with. I actually think of things in terms, as far as ideas, I think of critical mass, and I think of a prime computation like a mentat. Walk around, I do a lot of pacing. I pace through my house all the time. I'll pace back and forth through my room listening to a beat. What words will fit this beat? And I can look back to my childhood, 1981, 82 there was this hazy kind of sunshine, we still roller skated a little bit. I can remember all that early 80s funk jams. I remember Rick James, Prince, Michael Jackson, or whatever. But also remember gangbangers actually on the corner with their flag out selling drugs. I remember going through the bushes and finding little vials of PCP, something we call Sherm, because people used to use Nat Sherman cigarettes, which are fine tobacco rolled in cigar paper, so they burn slower. And you dip the PCP in the Sherman stick, and sell it for $5 or whatever. And it could be embalming fluid, it could be whatever or whatnot, but people got high off of it. You know, smoking a lovely. And I can almost pinpoint the day where crack hit the streets and kind of overturn Sherm. If you were a Sherm head, you could smoke Sherm, whatever. You could, you know, Barry White used to smoke Sherm. He's low-key known for it, you know. And you'd be all, but you could still hold down a job and go to work. But when crack hit the streets, that just changed the whole dynamic for everything. And I won't say it was a catalyst or whatever, but I think the story begins there, at least for me. I really want to talk about the parts of this really quick, but like as I thought about what I'd say to you guys tonight, I wanted to dwell on a few of the things that I really think impede creativity. It's not that people can't make something. They mainly think that they can't make something because either they have no capital, you know, like some kind of liquid source of money that they can throw at something, or they have no help, no one believes in them, or they don't have the proper equipment. This has to be like this because that's how they envisioned, I don't know, Kiss making their first album in 1978. If they don't have all that shit, then they can't sound like Kiss. I don't know. Anyway, I wrote about 9 archetypes, and I did kind of this Wizard of Oz thing where I just took people I knew, you know, like Dorothy at the end of the movies, like, and you were there, and you were there, and you were there. So I built these different archetypes from people I knew around town. I have a second generation drug dealer turned homeless crackhead that is kind of like my expositionary character in here, seeing everything, kind of being everywhere like Forrest Gump, but not necessarily involved in it. I have a young black girl I call Bougie Black Girl because, like, she doesn't act like a hood girl. You know, she loves her Starbucks and she loves her Taco Tuesdays and whatever or whatnot, and she's out here kind of aimlessly, you know, scamming on boys. You know, she might be 25, but they're still boys, and that kind of, you know, thing. And she gets backlash from regular hood people for not being black enough, which is, wow. Always remember this Mos Def line. He says 2 columns for who is and who ain't niggas. And I see that happen every day. I'm not black enough for the people in the hood where I grew up at, so I don't even go down there. And if I see any of them people, I keep stepping because they ain't no love. I might as well be from Bixby Knolls. Anyway, officer friendly, you know, we have to throw a cop off in there. And, of course, he's racist. And, of course, he's a tool of this unseen character that looms over the whole thing that I call Charlie. And Charlie runs everything. Charlie has the cops. We don't need to go there. Anyway, another important character I thought that I needed to have in there was a guy called Mr. Hotep. Now, in the black community, like, it's another one of them things that get flipped around. Like, Uncle Tom, that's a diss. Uncle Tom is actually the best, most virtuous character in that book. If you've ever read Uncle Tom's Cabin, all he wanted to do was get back to his wife, but he doesn't. He endures all this other crap. Little girl dies, he gets sold down the river, and that's a common vernacular you'll hear if you read about American slavery, sold down the river, because the worse it got, slavery got worse the further you got down south. And, you know, you'd have some nice masters, and then you'd have sadistic pigs like Simon Legree. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Whatever. I have a lot of archetypes going on, and I really needed these people to tell this story. This story is about crime. This story is about air pollution. This story is about bad health care, negligent health care, or guys scared to get health care. This story is about racism. This story is about sexism. This story is about homophobia. This story, I just needed to make this grand expression. And I'm going to play you guys a few excerpts and then explain that other thing I wanted to explain. I call this first song Stop, Pause, and Wait, Part 1, Ode to Ready Rock.
Clutching a brown bag, concealing a $2 half pint of some kind of grain liquor that makes the whites of their eyeballs swim inside their eye sockets, looking like runny, bloody, fried eggs. The cops don't let them hang too early or too late, but they think that they own that stinking little spot that they don't even bother to clean sometimes. Stop. That would be a natural reaction to an unnatural situation. Pause. Consider the moment for a spell. Let the madness drift away. Awake. Wake your dumb ass up and smell the funk that don't make you dance. It only makes you twitch, dip, and ready rock.
As you can see, I did not make this for children. I just wanted to introduce a few of my main characters and let you guys get the gist of what's happening with this. But like the main thing is about like how I did it. Now, I really believe in human capital. I happen to have a lot of talented friends, and like we can barter. You know, like we go get on each other's projects. We do gigs together, whatever, you know, the case may be. Or like creative people, when they see something that they really think is worthwhile, they'll lend their time and their energy to it. And like I kind of seek these people out in life. You know, there's a whole bunch of criteria for it, but I ground it down to one general saying. You know, we love this sport. And I look for people that love to do this, you know, and like, you know, not everybody can help. You know, you don't have to draw in mediocre people or whatever. You can just go ahead and set off whatever you want to set off. And like part of that is self-confidence too. A lot of people let whatever they want to do just like wallow in some dream trough, and then, you know, 5-10 years later they're regretting not fulfilling that. And like when you have the spark, you go with it. You tell people, you speak it into the air. You tell as many people as possible what you want to do, and then people will materialize. It's not magic. That's just the way the world is. You put this energy out, and I hate to speak in, you know, faux metaphysical gobbledygook, but like really, you're putting this energy out for things to happen. I've watched cats that, they're music producers or they have a band. I see them every 6 months. They're still playing me the same 4 beats. And like 5 years later, they still haven't produced an album and they still haven't gotten the band out. And like they needed that road sound on this one song, but like they couldn't afford a Rhodes. Wouldn't want to lug a Rhodes around anyway, but would not just get a decent electric piano sound that they put a little more reverb or like a little, you know, ring echo, whatever type of Rhodes sound that you want. You know, you do what you do. You know, you make things work. You make things happen. People trip out because they don't think they have expertise in things. A lot of dummies have went ahead and done something, and it came. Andy Warhol is a great example. I don't think Andy Warhol is any type of artist, you know, the soup cans, Marilyn Monroe, neon bullshit, you know? And, but the ideas, that's where he was innovative and having the nerve to try something stupid. People look at not having resources as an impediment. Look hard. Look deep. Go through your phone book, Rolodex phone or whatever, like. But, you know, you keep your contacts, and there's always somebody that can help. You know, I've been collaborating with people who work with lighting effects, and I've been collaborating with dance troupes. I've been collaborating with spoken word artists and rappers and singers and people from all the little segments and cliques of Long Beach, because Long Beach is a really diverse place, but there's a lot of cliques with a lot of snooty-ass people that I usually don't even be talking to. But I'm going to reach out to them because I'm Nixon, and this is China. Okay. Am I finished here? Do we? All right. Thank you very much.
So, you may know me. If you don't, I'm Sander, and I wrote a book. I wrote a book. And this is not the book I really wanted to write or thought I should write or anything like that. It was kind of something I just wound up having to write. And I thought that I would talk a little bit about the process that I went through to write the book, and also share a couple things from it. So, I was working for a while, and last year the job was making me very ill, and so I quit. And yeah, thanks. Yeah, and so eventually I started realizing that a lot of the reasons why I was feeling so bad was because there was stuff I hadn't really paid much attention to that I probably should have thought about and paid attention to and maybe worked through. And so there was this like stuff that I was struggling with, and I was avoiding it. And so I figured, well, let's not avoid it. Let's look at it as clearly and as intensely as I can muster. And so that process turned into this book. So one of the things I started with was the title, which is Musings of a Dunderhead. And it wasn't really my intention to be self-deprecating. It was just sort of recognizing that my willingness to embrace my own personal idiocy was actually healing. And it was the first step, really, in kind of moving forward and recognizing that whatever intellectual superiority that I might have imagined I had wasn't real. So I had to let all of that go. So that was really like the start of it all. And then the subtitle, which I'm going to share with you now, it's a little bit longer. Shit, I'm just now figuring out that others have known for millennia. And again, it's sort of like a recognition that I was kind of clueless. And so I recognized that in order to move through this process, I needed some structure. And so the structure that I created was the chapter titles. I came up with, I think originally 14, and I slashed it back to 13. And and then I decided, well, at first I was thinking, well, I'll just write whatever I'm going to write. But then I realized I needed to be a little more disciplined, and so I decided I was going to write 4 one-page pieces for each chapter. And so that actually gave me a framework within which I felt that it was manageable. It wasn't overwhelming. I could actually tackle each chapter. It was 4 pages, and some of the chapters were a lot harder than others. Some took a long time to get to. Some just I ripped through really fast. There were a couple of chapters that I wrote and then I completely threw everything away and rewrote them later because I had a different frame of mind at the end that I had at the beginning. So I think ultimately it turned out okay. The other thing, which was sort of shocking, Dave, where'd you go? Dave was talking about this idea that often people who have a creative idea, they just sit on it. They look at it, they think about it, they don't take that step into bringing it into fruition. Maybe it's confusion about how to move forward and get started. Maybe it's insecurity about one's own capabilities, or not realizing, like he was talking about, the personal capital that you might have to draw on to support you in your effort. And that's one of the things that I started doing right at the very beginning, is reaching out to my friends and talking to them and asking them to help me with getting some feedback. And so there were a few people, Jules one, who it helped me to have a little bit of a mirror bounce ideas off of, to see if I was going in the right direction or the wrong direction, or if I was just completely lost or whatever. But ultimately, I think it is indeed musings of a dunderhead. So I'm going to read a couple pieces. I'm going to read the very first one. This chapter is conflict. Oh, I should tell you, too, that pretty much all of the stuff in the book is based on true things, experiences that I actually had. None of it's really fiction. There's one or two pieces that are more sort of abstract, but basically it's all like legit things that I was dealing with. So this one is called Thwarted. It was killing me. Boundaries broken, unspoken demands met, an alphabet of compromises made to sustain the sweet pain. I was diseased, she displeased, no hope for satisfaction from her other lovers, and none from me. She felt safe enough to lay in my bed, take my pills, and try to die when I wasn't home. Her skin was cold when I returned, but her ambitions were thwarted by nausea. I asked for my key and cried as I watched her leave. Thanks. Thanks. So I guess, the process was about embracing vulnerability. And I think that one of the things that I was using as a touchstone as I wrote these pieces was how uncomfortable I felt after I wrote them. And I think that I was really trying to allow myself to feel uncomfortable as I looked at these things, because I knew that I was poking the tender spots, poking those areas of my mind and my heart where the pain was, because I needed to rip it open and let it heal. So that's kind of what I was hoping to do. So this one is called Sea Probe. And if you don't know, I guess I'll explain. My father ran the Queen Mary for the city of Long Beach for many years, and all through my childhood and teenage years, there would be these events that happened on the ship, and I would occasionally be invited to these events, and I would have to dress up and behave well. And right after my bar mitzvah, when I was 13, I was invited to one of these events, and it was a kind of a launch party for municipal bigwigs and other people, staff, for this new ride called the Sea Probe. And it was sort of like Star Tours at Disneyland, but it was like the size of a Fiat. And you got in it, and you sort of hunkered down, and there was a screen, and they showed a movie, and there were hydraulics that kind of moved this thing that and so that was the Sea Probe. Anyway, so there was this big event, and this is about that. So, Sea Probe. Fresh from my bar mitzvah, I was officially a man. The Queen Mary's Jacques Cousteau Museum of the Sea was celebrating the opening of its newest exhibit, the Sea Probe Simulator. It was a grand affair, held in the Grand Salon and catered by the ship's vast kitchens. Municipal officials, various luminaries, and ship staff were there. I was decked out in my suit and tie, feeling dapper. Hors d'oeuvres were served and champagne flowed like sparkling golden water. I sat with the young, beautiful adults who seemed glad I was there. We laughed, we talked. All was a soft, warm glow. I woke at 2 a.m., and as I moved towards the bathroom, I saw my father emerging from it. There was a moment of recognition, then I vomited Jumakae all over the white shag carpet. Thank you. Thank you. So, So I'm gonna just talk a little bit more about the book. One of the things that I discovered during this process was how easy it is to publish a book. It's amazingly easy. It really is. And I'm going to tell you all right now. I've been haranguing Jan Vogels over here to write a book about his family history, and I'm going to harangue each and every one of you because it's really easy. It costs nothing. It's free. You could get a book up on Amazon for zero money down, and it takes like a week if you have the material and you're willing to put it up there. So I'm just saying, you have a story to tell. I know you do. We've talked about it. You have a story to tell. I know you do. We've talked about it. You, I'm sure, have a story to tell. You have a story. We all have stories to tell. Let's tell them. That's what I'm going to say to you. Take your thoughts, take your stories, take your words, take your feelings, publish them on Amazon. Create space. It's super easy. Do it. Do it. You have no excuse. Like Dave was saying, you have human capital in me. We have human capital in each other. Let us support each other. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if one person buys it or 500,000 people buy it. The purpose is really the process of taking what's in your heart, taking what's in your mind, and just letting it out there, putting it out there. That embracing vulnerability, that's what it's really all about. And I so encourage all of you to try it. It's awesome. It's terrifying, and it's awesome. So I thought that I would read one more, and is this the last chapter? I think it is, yeah. Okay, so this is the chapter on youth. And this one's called To the Deep. And just so you know, this is an actual memory that I have from when I was 2 years old. I actually asked my mom about this experience, and she was like, how can you even remember that? That was when you were 2. So it's a very vivid memory. To the Deep. He was tall and lanky, standing in a small rowboat by a dock jutting out into the murky lake. His face, weathered from the sun and time, barely noticed the small boy watching him as he scrubbed the boat with a coarse bristle brush. The boy, barely 2, leaned forward and, as toddlers do, lost his purchase on the edge and fell into the dark water. Looking up, the boy saw the summer sun above him, shining through the algae-filled water, green and brown beams dancing around him as he sank. He didn't struggle. He wasn't afraid, drawn as he was to the deep. Then a lanky hand plunged down toward him, pulling him by his shirt to the surface, and he was back in the world again. He was quiet, and ever after wondered what mysteries he would have found down there. Thank you.
I guess I'll just tell this story since June wrangled me into this. Since this is how I made it, one thing that I helped make is an organization called the Friendship Neighborhood. And how it got started is the story that I want to tell. I was living in 2013, March of 2013, I was living in a house on the corner of 8th and Main Avenue, which I'm not sure if you know where that is, but it's about 2 blocks west of Magnolia. Most people in Long Beach have heard more of Magnolia than maybe Main Avenue. But I was hosting a night where a bunch of my friends that are community organizers or different activists in the city, we were having a little reunion at my house. And it was, I think, about 10 p.m., and some people were leaving, so we were out on the front porch, and all of a sudden, we just heard all these gunshots, and my front door had been wide open, and a bunch of us just dove inside onto my floor, because the gunshots were so close, and it was just turned out to be just right on the outside of my house. Our entrance was on Main, and the shooting had happened right on 8th, right on the other side of my house. And we were all kind of laying there for a moment, and then one of my friends, Winton, decided he wanted to get up and see if anyone had been hurt or what was happening outside. So Winton jumped up and ran out there, and my friend Tamara also jumped up and went after him. And based on a poem she wrote later, I realized that Winton was like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you coming?" And she's like, I know first aid, I know CPR. And so she came out with him, and they found a young man who later we found out was a 24-year-old neighbor named Nelson Suarez. And he had 2 bullet holes in his chest, and he was laying there, barely alive. And I know that when we were laying in there, we also heard a car like squeal away. And I think we heard maybe, I don't know, I couldn't really tell, but I think we might have heard 2 cars like go away. But Tamara ended up she gave him CPR. And I wish I had her poem right now to share with you about that experience, because it was pretty crazy. When I came outside, by the time I came outside, Winton was like, "Stay over on the other side, like don't come closer." Some people had gone closer, but I listened to him and stayed on the other side. And all of us had pulled out our cell phones and were calling the police and, calling an ambulance, calling 911. And like there's, like 10 of us calling. And then by that time, other neighbors had come out once they saw us all out there. And we were it just seemed forever. There's nothing, like they weren't coming. It was taking forever. And some of us were like mad. I mean, we were just like, a lot of us were maybe more privileged, where we were just like, what? Like the police are not here yet? The ambulance is not here yet? This is like taking forever. And some of the neighbors there were just kind of like, well, that's how it is in the hood, and some of them were just like, oh, it's probably just gangs, gang members, like let them kind of like weed each other out type of attitude. But we were just kind of like, what? And finally, the police showed up, and they had to clear the area before they would allow the ambulance to come for this guy who was just barely hanging on. And finally, like the fire truck came, and I was surprised that it took them so long, because the fire station was just right around the corner. Later, we were told that the police were given like a wrong address at first when they called 911 or something. They went somewhere else, and that there was also a shooting happening somewhere, I think on like Lime and downtown, that was taking a lot of people, a lot of the power that they had. So anyway, they finally show up, they take him away, and it turns out that he ends up like dying at the hospital. When he Tamara did see him take breath. She did feel him kind of like come back, but he ended up, succumbing. And it was, it was a lot to take in. And then after that happened, on the corner right there, a lot of people were showing up and bringing flowers and pictures of him and, different memorabilia and unopened cans of Budweisers that were like, like the 22-ounce Budweisers were sitting there. And I noticed that it brought a lot of different people, and I saw some mutual friends that we had and that I didn't know we had. And I noticed there was a lot of people that came there of different ages, seemed like different ethnicities, different backgrounds. And this kind of like tribute to him went on for several days. And on this like 6th day, I think it was, it was like 7 p.m. and me and Winton were watching a movie in my bedroom, which was like kind of like on the further side of the apartment from that corner. But we were like, wait, what was that? And we realized we heard gunshots again. And at that point, it turns out that the cops had gotten a call about supposed like gang graffiti being drawn near where this memorial was happening. And they came, and they, I guess the person got away. So they came to like find this person, and they said that somebody started running away that seemed suspicious. So they had to go after them, they said. And then they said that person shot at them first. And so then they had to like shoot back, but then they lost that person and they couldn't find him. And so next thing I know, they're just swarming the whole area, and they, for like 2 hours, we're just like kind of in our house, like, and there's just so much happening. There's like a big, huge ramp, like this long, I don't even know what it's called, but this thing where like there's like 5 or 6 officers that are holding it, like this big shield type thing. It was just very intense. Like, just the whole neighborhood was just like swarmed. There was just like, helicopters and all kinds of things happening. And eventually they came to my door and told me that we had to be evacuated. And they took us down like several blocks. They like escorted us down the block to like take us to where these like buses were that were going to take us to the Cesar Chavez Elementary to like where we could stay the night. Luckily I had a friend in the area. I was not going to stay at that elementary school. I went and stayed at a friend's house instead. And I came back at 8 a.m. and they were still there. And they were like, I was like, I need to get ready and go to work. And they said, well, if you go into your house, you can't come out for a while. So if you need to do that to go to work, like, you're not going to be able to do that. So I went back to my friend's house and took a shower there and got ready there and went to work. Soon after they called a meeting. It was the Wilmore, the name of the neighborhood is the Wilmore Historic District, I think. Wilmore, yeah. And that their like kind of homeowners association had a meeting, and they had the mayor coming, as well as, or not the mayor, I'm sorry, our city council member who was now the mayor, and he was our city council person at the time, as well as the police and the gang unit to come and talk to everybody and kind of like tell them what's happening or talk about it. And so we showed up to a bunch of my friends that were neighbors in the area. We get there, and then one of the first things I say is like, raise your hand if you are a homeowner. And they're like, I am, raise your hand if you are a property manager. They never once said like, raise your hand if you're someone who rents here and but lives here. And so whatever, we keep going there. They're talking about it, but we're kind of like, well, what happened with Nelson? Like, who killed Nelson? Like, who killed this kid? And they're just like, I don't know. You tell me what happened, And I realized that back when it happened, I was kind of a little nervous because, being a white girl from Manassas, Virginia, I am not used to like maybe necessarily living in an area like that and having these things happen where there's like a murder right outside my door. And I expected there to be someone coming to question me about what I heard or what I saw or something. And I was a little nervous, like, I don't want to be a narc, or I don't want to be like this like person that's like, I distrust the police in many ways. So I don't want to like, I didn't know like what I should say or not say, or should I talk about the car that I heard, peeling out or anything. But I guess I didn't have to worry about that because they never came and asked me anything, or, I was right there on the corner. My house is right there. They never questioned anybody of anything. But yet this, person dared to like shoot at the police supposedly, and the whole neighborhood became on lockdown, and this whole big thing happened until they find that person that dared to shoot at them but did not connect with them. No bullets hit anybody. Nobody was killed. But yet this person is killed 6 days prior to that, and they did none of that. So in this meeting, we're just kind of like trying to hear answers and what should we do? And like the Robert Garcia is like, well, we put more cameras down at Drake Park right down the street. So, and a bunch of homeowners clapped and they were excited about that. But to me, I'm just like, well, what is that really doing to stop violence from happening? That's just going to maybe help you catch somebody doing something wrong after the fact. But I don't know the answers of how to like stop the violence. What do I know? But that just doesn't seem like it's really being proactive. It just seems like it's reactionary and really just, not doing a lot. And this one lady stood up. Her name was Jessica. I'm blanking on her last name, but she works with an organization called Centro Shah. And she stood up and she was like, the youth are so underserved in this area, and we have all these things that we want to do, but like you make us jump through all these hoops to like be able to like even have a space to do it. Like, can we do it can we like host these programs at the schools or at the park? Like, please help us like to do this. And they were just kind of like, oh yeah, whatever. Like, that's nice. And she's just like, but we've been trying to do all this, but you give us like a space that's like not even in our district that we're trying to help, so what do we do? And like, they just kind of like they just shoot her on. They didn't really even like, that was like the one person that seemed to like kind of make sense in this room that was kind of trying to find a proactive solution. And they just, shoot her on. And then they like bring up the police commissioner. I think he was like the West Side police commissioner or something. I don't know his exact title, but he was the guy that's coming there to be like real charming and like, real like down to earth, and, you want to be his friend, and he's real nice and he cares and like cares about you. And he's just talking to us like, just as we're just friends or something. And he starts telling us this story about how when he grew up, he's like, yeah, I know, there's people make fun of the nosy neighbor. But he's like, really, like, I'm the nosiest neighbor ever because it's just so great to like be able to like, I wish I could remember his exact words, but he was just basically like proud of himself for being a nosy neighbor that would like report anything that looks suspicious. And my friend stood up and he's like, so are you just telling us to like stay inside of our homes, peering through the blinds and being afraid of everybody? Like, he's like, because he told us, if you see something suspicious, you tell us and we'll decide if that person belongs there or not. Like if you see someone that you don't know or you don't think belongs, then you tell us and we'll decide if they belong. And I'm like, how do I know every single person that is like a friend or a family member or that even lives here? Who am I to decide who is like doesn't belong here? And like, why would I want to put them into your attention? Like, I don't like, it just was not satisfying at all. Like any of the things that they were saying. And then the gang unit comes up and is like, if they're wearing a Raiders jacket and they don't know the owner of this, then they're in this gang. And if they're wearing this other sporting team's like out, clothes, then, and they don't know the franchise owner of that, then they're like in this gang. Cause they, some of these gangs wear these things like just to like, they rep that for whatever reason. And we're just like, okay, so I'm going to see somebody walking down the street in a Raiders jacket, and just be afraid of them and like call you. Like, it just didn't seem like anything they were saying were providing any solutions. And so me and several of the neighbors there, we started talking to the side on by ourselves. And we just started thinking, like, what can we do? We know that there's got to be more that we can do. And several of the people that lived in that neighborhood now that were community organizers, I had met them, full disclaimer, through the Occupy movement. So, we had gotten riled up. We had gotten, like, passionate about, like, trying to, right all the wrongs in the world or what have you. But then we started to realize that we needed to look local, and we see this happen, and we are like, we need to put into action the different tools and strategies that we've learned and see what, we don't know what the answers are to all these problems, but we figured that the more people actually got to know each other, the more they would care about each other. The more they care about each other, the more they could work together. The more, chance we had of being like a self-sustainable like neighborhood that could, not have to wait there forever for like the ambulance to come, that could help take care of each other a little bit better. And it always takes like actually getting to know each other. So we started, it was a bunch of us just got together at Drake Park and started talking and brainstorming ideas. And we didn't know exactly what to do, but we decided the first step would be to create the friendship neighborhood and to do a thing called a Friend Fest, where we try to activate and help make Drake Park a safe like space for everybody and bring us together just to kind of like create this kind of like sharing economy. And we invite different organizations. Nothing is for profit. It's all just like come together in the park. Let's like share music and art and, different resources that we have in the city and get to know each other better so that we can work together and we can, take care of ourselves together. So that's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Now, we have the good fortune to have...
Look up! Look up! Look up. Keep your eyes focused on the beautiful, ever-changing.